First of all, this presentation is presented through the Family Care Enhancement Project, which is the project that I work through here at the Munroe-Meyer Institute. We have parent resource coordinators, where parents of children with disabilities or special needs who have had specialized training to provide that parent-to-parent or peer-to-peer support and to help families get connected to different services and different supports. Particularly early intervention. We help navigate medical and education systems and get connected to community resources also. We also help in clinics. We help them meet the social determinants of health, kind of the wraparound non-medical needs that families might need and that do impact those health outcomes. We are a statewide program. We have parent resource coordinators like myself throughout the state. So wherever you are joining us via Zoom, we should have somebody who can help you in your community or somewhat close in your community to get you connected to those local resources. Just a couple of housekeeping quick items. We are going to record just the beginning portion of this over the presentation of the comprehensive waiver. And then when we start getting into maybe more of those personal questions and dates and things like that, we'll stop the recording. So that's not, that won't be recorded. And the recording will be edited and then uploaded, hopefully in a timely manner. I do all of that, so I'll try. To our YouTube page. So the Munroe-Meyer Institute has a YouTube page with videos, has really helpful presentations from all different departments, including ours. The Family Care Enhancement Project has all of our past presentations. All of our past topics are saved on there. So if you have questions about other topics, there's a really good chance that the answers will be on there. So that's where that will be. And I will send out an email tomorrow with the presentation of tonight, the slide deck, and then also this link. So you will have access to that. If you have any questions, if you could submit it through the Q&A function directly to me, to Jennifer Hansen, I will get to those. And at the end of the session, when you close out, when you're on Zoom, if you could just complete that really quick, it's like 3 questions, takes like 30 seconds survey. We would appreciate that. And tonight's presenters, we are super excited to have Joyful Stoves, Jillian, and Kathy present over the CDD. And here is my contact information. If you have any questions following presentation, you can reach out to me. Obviously, you have my contact information already, and I'll send out an email tomorrow that will have my phone number on it. If you have any additional questions about anything, feel free to reach out. Up here. Okay, I think we should be. It's good to go. Almost. Sorry, I will get this. I have 2 different screens. This is not, it's coming up on a different screen, so I apologize. Hey, yeah, no, still not. All right. This isn't even my first time. We can ascend lots of grace. Almost had it. Okay, there it is. Yay. Okay. All right, I will hand it over to you, Joyful.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
did you want to mention about the cards?
I sure can. So as far, I know a lot of you came to find out where you are on the registry, where your child is on the registry. So those of you who are here at MMI, I will pass out note cards back there and we'll ask that you put on there, what would you like?
Name and date of birth.
The name and date of birth of the child that's on the registry. And for those of you who are in Zoom, if you want that information, you can direct question and answer me, chat me with the same information, and we will get it to you through that that Q&A function. Thank you. It's all you.
All right.
If you have any technical difficulties, ask somebody else. So
Let's see if I can
you're on your own, but I want it to. Good luck.
So my name is Joyful Stokes. I am a program specialist with the Division of Developmental Disabilities. And I will have Jillian and Kathy introduce themselves.
I'm Jill Liskey and I work for the division as well. And I oversee our service coordination teammates across the state.
I am Kathy Arns, and I'm a program specialist with HCBS DD as well. And my main duty you're probably familiar with is I handle the registry. So Kathy will be able to look up people if you want to know where you are on the registry. And then Jillian, as she mentioned, oversees the service coordination. So once you receive services, you are assigned a service coordinator that is local to your area. And Jillian's team is who handles that. See how we can switch slides.
If you just hit the space bar, you should move forward.
Nope.
No, open. Good. Good. Thankfully, nothing's gonna work tonight.
Maybe an arrow.
Oh, so you can either
There you go.
click or the arrow there.
Perfect. So just an introduction to our division. We are the Division of Developmental Disabilities. We are part of DHHS. So we are under the umbrella of Health and Human Services for the state. As a division, we oversee all of the Medicaid home and community-based service waivers in Nebraska. And what that means is we determine eligibility. So if someone thinks they're eligible and they send us an application, we determine the eligibility on that. And then, and then Jillian's team, the service coordinators, help write and create person-centered plans for people once they're in our services. We then pay service providers to actually provide those services to people. And then the service coordinators monitor those services being provided. So we do require people apply for and accept Nebraska Medicaid, because all of our services are funded through Medicaid. And then you also have to use other benefits. So that's where the Department of Education is responsible for people through the age of 21, and that school year that ends. And then we also work with Nebraska VR to actually provide employment services, and they really do the seeking employment, the job search piece. So I'm gonna direct you to our website, because we have a wealth of information on our website. The two main sections you're gonna wanna be familiar with is the participants and families and resources. It's just gonna keep switching, isn't it? The participants and family section is gonna have like an eligibility page. That's just gonna have all those details about what it means to be eligible for services. And then the resources page is kind of the catch-all for everything. So if you find something on our website and you're interested, but you can't find it again, go to the resources page and it'll all be there. I did bring two handouts with me today. So the two handouts I brought today, one of them is a comparison of the waivers that we offer in Nebraska. So it will talk about all four, actually 5 soon waivers. And on the back, you will see a list of services and which waivers those services are provided on. And then since we are focused on the developmental disabilities waivers tonight, I brought the CRIC guide. And it has little paragraph descriptions of all of the services that are available on the developmental disabilities waivers. And those are all on our website as well. So today, I'm going to give you some general information that is pertinent to all 4 or 5 of our waivers. And then we'll talk specifically, I'm really going to kind of breeze past the aged and disabled, since that's not the focus today. And we'll really focus on those developmental disabilities waivers.
Sorry, they are saying the screens are not advancing for them on Zoom, so I'm gonna try and, sorry.
I don't know if they're seeing what's on screen too, so.
That's very. Is that working now for you guys? Are you on Zoom seeing the agenda?
Yes, yes, yes.
Excellent. All right, and then once we talk about what the developmental disability services are and what the waivers are, then we'll really talk about the application process and what it looks like to start services. So general information, and this is pertinent on across all waivers. The term waiver can kind of scare people sometimes because nobody wants to waive their rights to anything. You want to get everything you are entitled to. What a waiver is really doing is allowing Medicaid to raise some of their requirements for how they pay for services. So Medicaid typically, it's an insurance program, so it pays for medical needs. Therefore, Medicaid pays for things like nursing facilities. It pays for things like hospitals, like dental, like prescription. But not everybody wants to live in an institutional setting. We don't want to move into nursing homes or intermediate care facilities. We want to receive those services in the community. So the waiver is allowing Medicaid funding to be spent in the community instead of in more of a medical model. Waiver services, again, in addition to other things you will receive through Medicaid. So when you are on Medicaid, you will get the prescription, you will get dental, you'll get all of those Medicaid services. The waiver is above and beyond that you receive in addition to the insurance services. And then I just want to point out that waiver service or waiver funds are not used for things like room and board. They are not used for routine childcare. They're for very specific services that are meeting those needs that are identified as developmental disabilities or the other waivers. I also want to point out that we don't give money directly to people. Sometimes people think they've applied for us because they're getting disability benefits. If you are getting a disability check, that is through Social Security. It is not through our division. So we all use the same terms and the same words, but they are different things. We pay the providers directly for the services provided. So what do we provide funding for, and what services do we have? Our services are really intended to help people live in the community, because again, you're waiving your right to live in an institutional setting. You want to live in the community, so our services are paid for services in the community. Services are things that maybe help you learn things. A lot of our services we call habilitation, and it just means that we are teaching. So we can teach household tasks. We can teach some of those self-help skills, self-care skills, teaching people how to take care of themselves, how to shower, how to do laundry, all of those types of things. We can also teach skills to help people get a job, and we can help people on the job once they are employed to maintain that job. We also do have respite available on all of our waivers. And then we have some home and vehicle modifications. All of our waivers have those modifications, assistive technology. They all have emergency response systems. So there are some like direct services there. So I've probably already used the term participant. If I haven't, you will hear me say that tonight. We just use the term participant to mean someone who is participating in waiver services. A person can apply for multiple waivers, and they may be qualified for more than one waiver. However, you have to choose one waiver on which to receive services. And then we typically require waiver services be used on a regular basis. In order to receive a waiver, you're saying you need those services, so we expect you to use services when you qualify and when you're on a waiver. So we have 4 waivers currently. We have an aged and disabled waiver. This is more of a medical model. It typically is meeting the needs of people who have physical disabilities, not always physical disabilities, but more of those medical disabilities. It is intended to help people live in the community instead of a nursing facility. So it's looking at those medical pieces. Then we have our 2 developmental disabilities waivers. Today, we're really focusing on that comprehensive waiver. I've heard our deputies call it the Cadillac waiver. It is the waiver that gives you the biggest piece of funding. And it really has the most services available on the comprehensive waiver. So when we talk about the registry later, the registry is really people waiting for that comprehensive waiver. It is an all ages waiver, so it's possible to be on the comprehensive waiver at any age. We do have 200, 300 people statewide who are under the age of 21 and are already on the comprehensive waiver. The developmental disabilities adult day waiver, when you hear people say that they're getting a graduate offer, the adult day waiver is what they are receiving. The adult day waiver is really to focus on employment and daytime activities, and it is intended to replace what the schools are responsible for until the age of 21. The new waiver that's going to be starting, we anticipate March 1st, is our family support waiver. We don't have a ton of information on the family support waiver because we are waiting on federal approval for this waiver right now. But the family support waiver is going to be ages birth to 21 years old. And then at 21, you would then be on the adult day unless you have a comprehensive waiver offer. And then finally, we have a traumatic brain injury waiver. So this is intended for people ages 18 and over who have had a traumatic brain injury. And that is, again, more of a medical model. It looks at that nursing facility level of care. So that the one handout I have here today that compares the waivers, those are the 5 waivers it looks at. To be eligible for any of those 5 waivers, you have to apply. You have to meet the requirements to be a citizen or a legal resident of the United States. Medicaid defines Medicaid defines legal resident as you have been in the United States for a period of 1 year and have a green card. You also have to be a legal resident of the state of Nebraska. And then you have to be eligible for and receive Nebraska Medicaid. You have to meet a level of care requirement. So we'll talk about what that means in a bit. And then you have to have that need for waiver services. So I have a couple slides just on Medicaid, because sometimes people aren't sure what Medicaid is. Again, Medicaid is really just an insurance program. Every state has their own Medicaid program. And again, it's providing those medical pieces. So it's going to pay for your doctors, your prescriptions. If your child is on your insurance, you can still have Medicaid for them. Medicaid would always be the second payer if there's a primary insurance through a parent. But I know sometimes people hesitate because they're like, well, they're on our insurance, we don't need more insurance. Medicaid is the only insurance that will pay for waivers. So that's why we need Medicaid in addition to whatever other insurance. In Nebraska, there are different ways you can qualify for Medicaid. So some of the buckets are low income adults, pregnant women, children, elderly people, and people with disabilities. Most of our people that are receiving waivers are going to qualify under the people with disabilities bucket. For the disabilities, to qualify for Medicaid disability, they look at the Social Security disability determination. So if Social Security has already determined someone disabled, Medicaid will be able to take that determination and say that they have a disability. If Medicaid has not, or if Social Security has not yet made that determination, we do have a state review team that uses those same requirements and can find someone eligible with a disability. So again, I'm going to kind of just briefly run past the age and disabled waiver because I know that's not our focus today. But you'll see that there's a variety of services available on this waiver. Some of them, again, are very similar to the ones on developmental disabilities. For this waiver, it's aged, disabled, either or. You don't have to be aged and disabled, you just need one of those. And then again, it's the level of care to live in a nursing facility. So in Nebraska, we use an assessment called the NRI to determine if someone meets the level of care for the aged and disabled waiver. And it looks at some of the needs, some of their strengths and preferences. And one of the reasons I'm running through this is because this waiver does not have a rate list. So if someone has medical disabilities in addition to developmental disabilities, a lot of people will want to get on the aged and disabled waiver. They will choose this while they are on that registry for the comprehensive. We do look at different things based on the age of a child. So for birth to age 47 months, we're really just looking at the medical conditions that somebody has. Everybody under 47 months is going to have needs. So we're really just looking at the disability for those ages. And then we start looking at some of the limitations for ages 48 months and up. For the aged and disabled waiver, again, the main thing I want to mention is that we do not have a wait list on this one. So if you think someone qualifies for this, it might be a way to get some services, even if it's not your end goal. And if it is your end goal, you can get on right away and get what you need. So then we're going to focus on the developmental disabilities waivers today. So again, there's three. This slide is really organized by kind of the ideal. With the new family support waiver, right now it is approved for 850 people in Nebraska. So when we start in March, we will work on filling those 850 waivers. It is birth to age 21 years. At 21 years, you would transition off of that onto one of our other waivers. It is really intended to support a child living with their family and to help families stay in their homes. The adult day waiver is where most people currently enter into our services. Again, this is you have graduated from high school at 21 years of age. If someone chooses to get their diploma before they are 21, we cannot start this waiver until they turn 21. It's intended to really maximize someone's ability to work. And it focuses on employment. Again, it's replacing what the school system provides, so that there's not a gap in their daytime activities. And then the comprehensive waiver that we're focused on today is, again, all ages. It has the biggest funding pot. It is the residential, the day, everything, all the services to wrap around a person's natural supports. It does include 24-hour residential care. That is not a requirement of being on that waiver. Don't ever get scared that because you choose the comprehensive waiver, you have to choose a 24-hour facility. We always want to provide services where a person wants to live. So I've kind of alluded to it, but most of our services are broken into day and residential. So the day piece, again, is going to wrap around the things that Nebraska VR does. So if someone is not ready to get a job, they don't have the skills yet to get a job, we will provide services to help them learn skills they need. And it might be learning hygiene. It can be pieces that might look residential, but are really things they need to learn in order to have a job. And then once Nebraska VR says, yes, they're ready to get a job, they will help them locate employment. And then Nebraska VR will step out after, I think it's like 6 months, 9 months. Once they feel someone is stabilized in their job, they're done. And we can wrap back around on the other side and provide job support at that employer. The other piece is the residential services. Residential services, again, can occur anywhere a person wants. I want to make sure people hear that because we never require people move. So if you get a comprehensive offer and your child is living with you and you want your child to continue living with you, they absolutely can. You can take advantage of the respite. We can do some in-home services, help with learning some of those skills. Again, that would be things like maybe they need to learn how to wash their own laundry. Maybe they need some help with hygiene, some of those skills. So it can happen in a family home. Someone can move into their own apartment and we can provide some support in their own apartment or whatever level they need. And then we do have providers that have provider operated homes. So it's like the traditional group home type setting. That is a service on the comprehensive waiver. We also have what we call shared living, which is moving into a family's home and kind of becoming part of their family, but getting a 24-hour service in their home. And again, you'll see this chart on the screen. That's going to be in that. It's actually in both handouts I brought today. So you can see which services are available and which waivers. So for all three of the developmental disabilities waivers, you have to have a developmental disability. Developmental disability is defined in state statute. There is not like a federal definition that is recognized. It's not in Nebraska. So our state statute says that there has to be a diagnosis and limitations. So it's a two-part. The diagnosis. Go back.
Now your arrow just.
The diagnosis is typically going to come from a medical doctor. It can also come from a psychologist. Typically, school psychologists are not going to be able to diagnose. Usually someone who has gone to school to be able to diagnose can make more money outside of the school system, so they usually don't work in the schools. But the diagnosis is going to be based on that IQ. If you're just looking strictly at an intellectual disability, and if it's done by a psychologist. An IQ, however, is not a diagnosis. So just because you know someone's IQ, that is not a diagnosis for them. And then limitations are going to be the second piece. And we'll talk about those in a moment. The limitations, we're really going to look at the school's documentation to identify what limitations look like for that person. So when we get an application, we're going to confirm that they have the diagnosis and that we have the limitations. When you apply for services, if any of you are still in the process of we need to apply, if you have documentation from doctors or you have documents from schools, you can absolutely send those in with your application. And it might help it go a little bit faster because we have everything up front, but we never want to put that burden on you. So if you do not have the documentation, we just need to know who the doctor is, what schools you're going to, and that application is going to include a consent to release information. And then we will reach out to the doctors in the schools and gather documents. Typically, once we get documents or after 90 days, we're going to make a determination. So once we determine that, yes, you have that developmental disability, which is the diagnosis plus the limitations, then we look at level of care. So the level of care piece is very similar to the limitations. Most people who meet the limitation of the diagnosis is also going to meet the level of care. But level of care for this, we use an assessment called the developmental index currently. And it looks at things like capacity for independent living, self-direction, learning, mobility. There's just a whole range of things that it looks at. So right now, we don't have enough funding for everybody who qualifies for developmental disabilities. So this is where the registry comes in. And I might ask Kathy to stop looking at names and talk a little bit about the registry.
Do you want to accept that one person into the Zoom?
I just did. What do you can do? We'll just double admit them. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with the registry. When a person is found eligible, that information is given to me and they are logged onto the registry by their date of application. So I know right now, eligibility processes are taking a little bit longer, but we just have to remember that it's the date of the application. So even if they apply, say like in March, but you don't get their notice and the eligibility isn't completed till September, it's that March date that they get put onto the registry with. And so then they start waiting, and I monitor that then for when I'm advised that I can make offers, and I take the first group of people off to make offers, funding offers, either for day waiver or for comprehensive waiver. Day waiver for those individuals who are turning 21 and transitioning out of the school system. And that 21 year goes basically from the middle of August through the school year up until the next August. So if somebody turns 21, they may be a 2024 grad and receive an offer from me, but they might not be turning 21 till the summer. So they can start their services on their 21st birthday. On the other hand, if somebody turns 21 on today, and they're going to transition out of school in the spring, then they will start their services when they transition out of school in the spring. So it's turning 21 and transitioning out of school. So I will be sending out those offers for those individuals who will be considered 2024 grads in January. So if you have someone in your household that falls within that, look for that paperwork to come from me. There's usually 3 pieces of paper in there and a return envelope that need to be completed and returned back to me so we can get going on it. Are there any specific questions you guys have for me on the registry? As of December 1st, we have 2,520 individuals that are waiting on the registry for services. People are moving up. It's actually a lot better than it used to be. You guys can probably remember when it used to be 5,000 or 6,000 people that were on there. We went a long time where we weren't able to make funding offers. The legislature has been generous with us in appropriations over the last sessions, and so we have been able to make some. We've been able to get that number down. So you probably remember also stories about it being 10-year wait, and we don't have that anymore. So I know there is still a wait for families, but it's not like it used to be. But I am happy to answer any questions that you may have for me on the registry.
And of those 2,000 some, they're really waiting for the comprehensive, correct? There are many
The
people on-
2,520 that are on there are waiting for our comprehensive waiver. Basically, the registry is the list of those that want the comprehensive services. Within there, we do have individuals that are on the aged and disabled waiver. So of those, we have 418 of those 2,520 that are currently on the aged and disabled waiver. So they're receiving some waiver services from us. We have 353 of those 2,500 that are currently receiving their day services. So they've reached that 21 milestone and transitioned out. So they're receiving their day services. And then there's 281 of those 25 individuals who just have an SC. They have just chosen just to have a service coordinator, work with them, meet with them monthly. And so there are 1,052 people out of that 2,500 people that are receiving some kind of a service from us. So it's not like we have 2,500 people that are just sitting there. We do have some benefits that we're able to provide for them. Yes.
So those that have asked for a services coordinator, is that because they're eligible for Medicaid, or are they paying for it, or is it a combination of both?
So in order to receive a service coordinator, you have to have some type of Medicaid. For a minor child, we do provide a CD through our financial responsibility where they can fill out, it's like a 5-page financial paperwork to see if they have an ability to pay towards that service or not. Some families choose to go that route and see if they do have an ability to pay. Sometimes it does come back as say maybe $25 a month, $50 a month. Sometimes it's full cost, you know, you're like, yeah, you need to pay the full cost if you want to do this. But they do have to have the Medicaid, the service coordinator. A lot of times I do encourage people when they reach that age of 19, because they're in that transition period. A service coordinator can be so beneficial to them then because they attend those final IEP meetings with them at the school. They work with the transition program that they're in. They get that whole process ready to go so that when they reach that 21 milestone and they're ready to get into the day services, they're already so far ahead of the game because they've had somebody working with them, kind of leading them through the process. So when they get that grad offer, they can send it back in. Since they have a service coordinator already assigned, I send the information off to them once I approve it, and they can hit the ground running.
We had a couple of questions come in on the length of the registry. So if somebody were to apply today, what would the approximate length of time be before an offer could be made?
If somebody applies today for a comprehensive offer, it's 6 years.
I have a question. So this new family support waiver that is taking effect sometime next year, March, you said, when people, and that only goes up to age 21, when they age off of that, will they automatically get this comprehensive waiver? Or where do they fall?
So when they move from the family support waiver, it's designed for them to move into that grad offer. For
Okay,
day services, because family support is under 21.
right.
And so then when they reach that 21 milestone, that year of age, then they will be getting a grad offer from us.
And what
so
does
then
a
they can
grad
come from the
offer
family.
mean?
That's
Sorry.
just my language.
No,
It's a
no,
grad offer.
no,
We
no,
call
that's
them grads because they're
They're out of
actually
the school.
transitioning out of the school system or the transition program. So I call them grads, but it's a day offer is what it is. It's our DDAD, our Developmental Disabilities Adult Day Waiver is what it's called. And so it's designed for when the families, when they age out of that family support, then they will move into the DDAD and start day services.
Okay, but they wouldn't move into this comprehensive.
Unless their name were up on the
Or
list
up on
by
the
their
list,
date of
okay.
application.
this would
We
be the
may have
service they
somebody
could-
That's,
Automatically transfer into some sort of service.
yes.
Thank you.
And they could receive the CDD waiver before they're 21 if
Yes.
their name comes up. They don't have to stay on the family support just because they're.
Yes,
currently
if
on.
somebody's on family support, maybe say for 6 months and their name comes up on the registry for our comprehensive waiver, that's going to be offered to them.
Okay.
And then they will come in there. Now, the day services are available when they turn 21. So say someone gets their comprehensive waiver at maybe 17, then their service coordinator will start those day services once they're eligible for them at age 20.
Thank you.
We did have another question come in. Can someone who is on the registry for the comprehensive waiver participate in voc rehab services?
Yes, they definitely can. We work with Voc Rehab a lot. In fact, I probably get 5 or 6 emails from my Voc Rehab contact asking if people are on the registry or if they've applied for DD services, because we collaborate together to make sure that those people that need to apply and be waiting, especially for their day services, are going on. So yeah, I work with DJ Plouts and email back and forth probably 4 or 5 times a day, asking me individuals.
Okay, we have another question come in. Who will get the new family support waiver? Do we need to apply for it? Is it by age or how will it be offered?
So in order to get it, you do need to go through the application process. And you need to apply just your general DD application, apply for services, go through the eligibility process and be put on the registry. Because the individuals that will be moved or grouped for the family support offer are those that are on the registry and meet the criteria. They are under age 21, correct?
like
Yes.
It was like, we're so joyful. We're just not being patient.
Joyful. There you go. There you go. Look at that. So yes, they do need to apply and be on the registry in order to receive that family support waiver.
So in addition to the date of need, there are other ways to get on the comprehensive waiver as well. So we have 6 different priorities in Nebraska. And Kathy will send the offers for all 6 of them. Our first priority is immediate crisis. So if someone is waiting on the registry and they have an immediate crisis, such as a caregiver death, if they're at risk of homelessness, they need to let us know. And then we will work to get them on the registry if they can show that they have that immediate crisis. The second one is institutional settings. So again, remember Medicaid pays for institutional settings, right? So if Medicaid is already paying for someone to live in an intermediate care facility or a nursing facility, it is cheaper for them to move into the community. So therefore we can get them on a waiver. The third priority is people aging out of foster care and juvenile justice. So we work with both of those systems to get people onto the comprehensive waiver at the age of 19. Both of those services end at age 19, and we don't want there to be a gap for them. The fourth priority is the one that Kathy's really been talking about when she calls them the grad offers. So that fourth one is really the one bucket where they automatically get the adult day waiver instead of the comprehensive. Very rarely is someone who's in immediate crisis going to get the adult day. It can happen, but usually if you have a crisis, it's going to be into the comprehensive. The fifth is for military dependents. So especially in this area, if you're aware of someone who's gotten stationed in Nebraska, we don't want to break up families, so people can bring their dependents with them. And once we determine eligibility, we can get them in services. And then the sixth priority is that date of application. So that's where Kathy's looking up, well, when did you apply? It's that sixth priority. And then to the question, what are the priorities for the family support waiver? So how do we determine out of the people on the registry, again, you have to be on the registry to get the family support waiver because we have to know you're eligible. So the priorities for the family support, there are 5 priorities for this one. The first priority is children with disabilities in family units in crisis. So similar to the other one, if the family is having a crisis, this crisis is defined a little bit differently. So if the child is self-injuring or injuring siblings, we can look at that as being a crisis situation. The second priority is children at risk of placement outside of the home. So you saw in the other one, we work with juvenile justice and the foster care system to get people when they're aging out of those. The second priority is kind of catching people before they get into those systems. The third priority is children whose primary caretaker is grandparents. The fourth priority is families with more than one child with disabilities. And then everybody else is going to be a date of application similar to. And Kathy, do you want to talk any more then about the priorities for family support? We work, Kathy's team has been working on sending out letters to people on the registry who are under 21 years of age to determine where people fall in this category.
So we sent out a survey, probably some of you received that survey. There's approximately 1,300 people on the registry that meet the criteria for the family support when we started that survey in June. So we reached out with the different priorities to see from the families which classification their individual or their family they're lovely, they're remember, their loved one is what I was looking for. There we go. Their loved one family, their loved family one member, whatever, however you want to say that. So we didn't receive all of the responses back, but we did get a fair number. And so then we were able to go in and classify those individuals that would fall under the first priority under the family support waiver because they would receive the first round of offers going out. And so we did get quite a fair number of back, enough to move forward with the waiver should it be approved. And we've got enough to start with that first round of offers that would go out. Anticipation March 1st is I think what we're still looking at.
And if someone were to apply today, we would figure out where they fall and
Yes.
classify them on the registry, correct?
So what we're doing now is if someone applies, we are asking them as part of the eligibility process, we're asking them the same questions that were on the survey. so that we can automatically find, and when that information comes to me, then I can automatically classify them on the family support waiver as to where they would fall in under the 1, 2, 3, 4, or in the 5 with the remaining that don't meet the first 4 categories.
Just out of curiosity, how many, is there a percentage? How many are actually of the slots, 850, what percentage are falling into prioritization? Is there a number or a percentage, like if you could ballpark it?
Like the prioritization 1 through 4?
The large number of them that what we received back are falling within the priority 1 category.
348, I just.
Do you want to say that louder, Julie?
I think Kathy, I think there's 348 in that first one, and I only know because today I was trying to plan and map out where our new service coordinators would go based on the offers, so I happened to be diving into that number earlier today, so.
So another question, if, you know, the family support waiver is capped at what, like $10,000? What happens if there's not enough funding to support the intensity of need for that bucket of 1? Any thoughts on that? Will they get prioritized to the comprehensive waiver then?
I can answer this if you want me to. So there is it's a hard cap at $10,000 for that family supports waiver. That's what CMS, that's what we submitted and that's what's in the statute.
Yep.
If that budget does not meet the participants' needs, they would need to then be reviewed for the other prioritization that Joyful showed earlier. We'd have to be able to go through that they'd have to meet one of those categories to be able to get that comprehensive offer. And there wouldn't be, because we get this question a lot, and on some of our other waivers, there's some exception funding and things like that. There is not an option for that for the family supports waiver. That's a hard $10,000 cap.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
And someone who gets on the family support waiver does not lose their spot on the registry, because I know we've had questions about that. They remain same date of application, they remain on the registry for the comprehensive.
And just because they might be receiving services under the family support waiver, if their name were to come up, if I were to be told to make some registry offers, if they're already receiving family support, it doesn't make any difference. They're still going to receive that comprehensive offer off the registry.
Based on the data need.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can't go back, there we go. So again, Kathy's gonna mail offers for any of those priorities. The way we notify is we need them to sign and accept. If you want to talk more about that, it's very important if you are on the registry, make sure you keep us informed if you move, you have new phone numbers, you have new emails, we need to be able to reach you. It's hard for Kathy to make an offer if we don't have a current way to reach you.
Who do we provide that change of address to?
Access Nebraska.
Okay.
Access Nebraska handles, that's where you go into, so if you have Medicaid or anything and you have to make a change, you go into Access Nebraska and you probably have a code so that you can get in and you can make any changes in there to your individual. And if you don't have that, there is a phone number that you can call and they can give you your access code.
And so you can also access it by going to, just go to Medicaid long-term care website on our on our DHHS website. You can also go and find the icons to be able to go into Access Nebraska and change the address there. It can be kind of confusing, but it is best to change
But
it
if
through
you
that
have a
system.
service coordinator,
So
can they help us change that?
we can, so while we love to do everything we can to help support you, it's our address, it's in the main state database system, which is at Access Nebraska. And so while we can submit change requests and things like that, it really does work best if the person who is living at that address can make those changes.
We're just moving on Friday.
Yeah, yeah.
We haven't moved yet.
You got 2 days to figure it out.
Oh, I serve? Yeah, it might have already changed.
Okay.
But yes.
Something actually recently on there, so.
Yes, yes, thank you.
I serve.
We did have a question come in. Is the family support waiver a separate application or am I automatically included in that waiver if I recently applied for the CDD waiver? I applied for the CDD waiver within the last 2 weeks and don't recall those specific questions.
It's the same application.
I believe the additional questions will come in once eligibility is determined.
Yes. Like as to what priority they might go into, if that's what they meet, that'll come like when our waiver support specialist reaches out to them as part of their eligibility process. If the person is found eligible, then they will say, you know, what are your needs? And to classify them under one priority. Thank you.
So for the comprehensive waiver, and the adult day, the budget varies based on a person's needs. So we've mentioned a couple times this, that $10,000 for people on the family support waiver. That is a flat 10,000. However, if you're on the adult day or the comprehensive, the amount of money you get is going to vary based on your needs. So we are currently using an ICAP assessment to determine that. The ideal is that people who have higher needs are going to get higher funding. So someone who's learning to feed themselves or look at something to make a decision is going to get a higher funding level than someone who's learning how to ride the bus system. It is a needs-based assessment. If you're coming in, you're getting an offer, we're going to come out and do that assessment before you can actually start services on the waiver, because you have to have funding before you can start services. When you are doing the assessment, it is important to remember that it is needs-based. So continue to celebrate the awesome things your kids are doing, but also remember that we provide a habilitative service, which is teaching. And if you're telling us that they can do everything on their own, it's really hard for us to see that they have a need for waiver services. We do have to see that there are limitations, there are things we can continue to teach them. So we want you to be honest. We don't want the person learning to ride the bus to get the higher funding level because he's lied on the assessment. But we do need to see needs. That ICAP assessment is going to be done with two people who know the person well. Kathy alluded to when she sends the letters, it's a couple of pages. One of the pages you're going to get when you say, yes, I want this funding offer, is going to ask us who should we talk to do this assessment. So you're going to list people to do the assessment with. Ideally, the people we do the assessment with have known the person for at least 90 days and see them on a daily basis. So especially for the adult day, or really any of them, if the person is in school, we really like to do someone from the school system, and then we really like to do someone they live with. We know that we all act different at work than we do at home. We expect the same is true of students. They act different at school than home. So ideally, we're doing that assessment with someone from the school and someone from home. And then I'm going to kind of fly through the traumatic brain injury waiver, and then I'm really going to let Jillian talk about how services start in the person-centered planning we do. So traumatic brain injury waiver, I do want to touch on this because it's completely different than it was a year ago. We now have a whole bunch of different services for people who have traumatic brain injuries. To be eligible for this waiver, you have to be age 18 or older. You have to have that disability with the Social Security requirements, and then there has to be a diagnosis of a traumatic brain injury. This is another waiver where there is not a rate list, there is not a registry. So if someone qualifies for this, they could start services right away. We use the same level of care assessment that we use for the aged and disabled on this one. So again, we're looking at needs that they have. Same thing as the aged and disabled. We're going to make sure they have Medicaid. We're going to check with Social Security, figure out if they have a disability. But then we also do need that diagnosis from a doctor of a traumatic brain injury. And again, there is no wait list for this one. So to apply for any of these waivers, there's a couple of ways to do it. On our website, there's a paper application that you can print off. We have that in about 6 languages now. So on the paper application, there's check box on the top. So you can apply for multiple waivers if you're thinking, yeah, maybe that aged and disabled waiver, something I qualify for. No, I just want developmental disabilities, whatever the case is, you can check mark 1 or all 4 waivers. Anyone can help someone fill out an application. So if the application is overwhelming to you, find someone to help you fill it out. I think Munroe-Meyer will do that. I know PTI Nebraska will. Anybody can help you fill out that application. We do need the person who is legally responsible to like sign the application. And then when we call and we're trying to determine eligibility, they need to comply with the process. If someone doesn't return calls, doesn't give us information, we can't determine that they are eligible. The other way is Access Nebraska for the developmental disabilities waivers. So if you're interested in the aged and disabled with traumatic brain injury, you cannot do that one online currently. But for the developmental disabilities waivers, you can complete that through Access Nebraska. And it's not ISERV on this one. This one is not yet on ISERV. But again, if you're applying for the DD waivers, it's actually going to be for all 3 of the developmental disabilities waivers. So you can submit an application, paper or electronic. You can bring it to any local office if you want to hand it to someone. You can mail it, you can fax it. It's a whole lot of ways to get it to us. Again, we need whoever is legally responsible to participate in that application process. So that might be answering questions, it might be providing us with some information, and then participating in those assessments for level of care. And Kathy, do you want to talk briefly about the appeal process and what someone should do if they're determined not eligible and they think that's incorrect?
Sure. So I handle the appeals also for the division. And if you do go through the eligibility process and you get the notice of decision that says that your individual was found not eligible, there should be a second sheet attached to that notice that says you have 90 days to appeal that. So we have a request for fair hearing form that can be requested to fill it out. We have accepted an email from a family that says, I would like to appeal. We do need name, address, telephone number. So when I receive those, I look them up to make sure we do have the individual in the system, see what they were found not eligible for, what they are appealing. The information then is reviewed to make sure that if sometimes families will send in additional medical documentation that we didn't have the first time around or something. Sometimes it's something that we can possibly look at our decision before it has to go into the formal appeal process. If that isn't the case, then I send them to the hearing office, which handles all appeals, and then they will notify, they set up a hearing date, they'll notify the family who has appealed, they will notify us of the date, and then all parties are able to present the exhibits that they want. So if DHHS had denied or found somebody not eligible, we would present as part of our exhibits the documentation that we felt met so that the individual is found not eligible. The family, on the other hand, may have other documentation that they didn't have, that they had just gotten or something, they could present that. And the hearing officer looks at it all during the hearing. They're telephonic hearings, so you don't have to actually be there and present. They will look at all the documentation and then render a decision as to whether or not it should be affirmed. So it stays as a not eligible or reversed or that. So any questions about the appeal process?
Is the appeal process the same for all of the HCBS waivers? And is it the same person that evaluates?
Well, then we have different hearing officers.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And so when I send it to the hearing office, the paralegal takes it and they assign it to a hearing officer.
And if the 90 days has passed, but the person gets new information, you can always apply again. Don't waste everybody's time by applying with the exact same information. But if you have new documentation, you have a new diagnosis, or the schools have done new assessments and you have new limitation information, you can always apply again. There is no limit on applications. You can only have one active application at a time though. So if we have not made a determination or if we're in the hearing process, you cannot give us a second application until that first one is closed. All right, so once you've made it through all of that, you've applied, Kathy has sent you your golden ticket and you're ready to start services. I'm gonna let Jillian kind of talk about how service coordination works.
Is it okay if I just do it from here? Is that all right? All right, so service coordination, we are super excited to work with all of the families we do. We work with some amazing folks out in our community. We kind of spoke to it a little bit earlier. Service coordination will come into play when there is a waiver funding offer that has been made. Or if a person is on Medicaid, you can request a service coordinator to assist you with just case management. And they would just do some case management responsibilities with you. But service coordination, I think we have to go one back actually, if you don't mind. So service coordination for the DD waiver, since we're focusing on that today, that's all done with DHHS, Developmental Disability Service Coordinators. And so we have just under 300 service coordination teammates across the state today. With the family supports waiver, we are expanding our team and we'll be getting another 40 positions. So we'll be adding some more service coordinators so that we can support some additional folks. For the aged and disabled waiver and our traumatic brain injury waiver, service coordination is provided a little bit differently. So that birth to 3 years is done by our early development network. For the ages 3 to 17 years, or if they would prefer not to work with the early development network, that's done then through our state age and disabled waiver service coordinators. I think there's about 23 of them maybe across the state that are supporting folks on the age and disabled waiver up to the age of 17. At the age of 18, folks who are on our age and disabled waiver or the traumatic brain injury waiver will work with either the League in Human Dignity or the area agencies on aging. And so they have some choice there at 18 on who they may prefer to work with. Service coordination, we wear many hats, like probably all of you do in your normal day jobs and your jobs at home, right? But one of the things that we'll do once you are assigned a service coordinator is we'll reach out and we'll want to meet with you in person. And that's our opportunity to get to know you or get to know the needs that are not being met or the needs that maybe you want to see our waiver be able to help support you with. That'll be an opportunity when we're want to maybe do some assessments, some risk screens, again, just kind of identify what are needs that are there and what supports and services could we try to match you with. When the student is still in school, we want to also make sure that we're joining and participating in the IEP meeting and the NDT meetings with the school. It's really important for us to be a part of those meetings. We have some families that maybe don't want us there or they don't include us there and understand that. But it's really helpful for us because we're that service that kicks in after the education system. And so we really want to make sure we get to know folks earlier so we can help set them up with the right services and supports. Plus, the other benefit of having us there are some schools in Nebraska that maybe that school county or that school doesn't have some services that are working really well for participants. And so maybe families are choosing to leave school early and not do that extended program. And it's really important when we're at that table, we can really push the school to try to be more creative and we can help you as a parent navigate some of those conversations. Of course, we partner with PTI and some other agencies as well that are great, but there are some school systems that maybe are a little bit harder to work with. They have a tough job too, so not casting stones by any means, but when we can be there and we can be in those IEP meetings, we can help navigate those conversations with you so that your loved one can stay in school until our funding will kick in. The service coordinator is going to be there to just, like I said, kind of help with what the person needs. And then of course, once there is waiver funding that would be authorized, we're sort of that bridge between what's happening at DHHS and what you want in your services and those service providers and the family. So we're kind of that person that can make sure that we're connecting our agencies with what you want and what you need. And so then we oversee and monitor those waiver services. I think Joyful spoke about that earlier. We do not provide any direct services other than case management, but we don't provide that waiver service, but we are the person that does the authorizations for the people who do provide that service.
And I don't think there's a slide on it, but the service coordinator is also going to be the ones who will help you find providers. So we have two different types of providers in Nebraska. We have agency providers and independent providers. An agency provider is going to be a business that will have direct staff that they train, they employ, and they'll send people to do the services. An independent provider might be somebody you personally know that already knows the person and could get approved as a Medicaid provider to provide services for them. So if you choose to go with an agency provider, the service coordinators are going to help you like explore what agencies are available in the area you live in. If you choose to go with an independent provider, they're going to help that person get enrolled in Medicaid.
We did have a question come in to ask if the services coordinator positions are fully staffed.
So we do have some vacancies across the state. So like in our Lincoln area, we're fully staffed. In Omaha, I didn't look at this today and I probably should have. But the last time I counted last week, I think we had maybe 13 vacancies, and that's across the state. So that's not super high. I've been in service coordination for 20 years and I can tell you we've had a lot higher vacancies than that before. And so I think it might have been 11 or 14, but that's still not too terrible. And in our western area, I think right now is probably where we have some, but I think maybe that's like 4 or 5 right now. So it's not too bad.
Thank
So
you.
how is service coordination gonna be done for the family support waiver?
So service coordination shouldn't look any different for those folks receiving the family supports waiver. All the roles and responsibilities of a service coordinator should be the same across our family supports waiver, our day waiver, as well as our comprehensive waiver. It's just what we would be able to authorize with the providers that will really change, right? Maybe your options, as Joyful spoke about earlier, the service array will change based on what waiver you're on, but service coordination case management should really stay the same. That function shouldn't really change.
And so the Division of Developmental Disabilities will do it, the Early Development Network won't?
So correct. So because the family supports waiver is a developmental disabilities waiver, service coordination is all DHHS all through our division. So it is not, there wouldn't be an option for early development network or the League of Human Dignities or the areas of aging office of age. I get that turnaround, the AAAs. So yeah, they wouldn't be able to provide case management for the family supports waiver.
And service coordinators have mixed loads right now. They serve people on the comprehensive and the adult day. So they will just add the family support. So once someone enters in, no matter which of the 3 waivers, they can keep that same service coordinator if they change waivers.
So speaking of caseloads, we just had a question come in. What are the current services coordinator loads?
So right now we average about 25, and actually it might be a little bit lower than that. Our standard caseload is 25 people on a caseload for a service coordinator. I think when we ran the numbers for the last round of offers, we were sitting at an average of probably 21 to 22. And you have to keep in mind that's from across the state. So we have some areas in Nebraska that are fairly rural, that office might only have like 18 people on a caseload. And then in our Omaha or Lincoln areas, maybe they have, 26 or 27. But right now most areas aren't going over that 25. There are some areas where we have coverage, and so that might take place where they have a little bit more than 25, but we're sitting pretty good with our numbers right now.
Thank you.
Yeah. So service coordination does everything we can, or we should be doing everything we can to be person-centered in all the things that we do. That said, as much as we want to be person-centered and match everything with what people want and need, we still have to comply with our waiver definitions and our regulations, because sometimes we will get feedback to say, but this is really what the person wants. They want to use their waiver funding to do whatever, but it's not an option for us because we have to stay within our service definition. So service coordinators will make sure that we are working with people to get everything that they want out of life within our parameters, and that they're being as independent as they can and they're getting the best quality experience, which is really what's in mind for us when as a division we're designing services and service options in the community. We're trying to think about those things at the forefront. Person-centered planning starts with the person, right? Wanting to know what they want out of life. If they live at home today, is that what they want to do forever? Do they want to move into their own apartment after they graduate high school? Is there a desire as a service coordinator? I had somebody on my case that I supported who couldn't wait to move into a group home. So whatever it was that they wanted, we're going to try to work with them to be able to connect them with the right services so that they meet their goals and they meet their ultimate outcome. We do utilize Charting the Life course. That's the framework that the department has adopted. So we do work with some tools that are in our case management system today. And those tools are being done kind of at that pre-meeting before our annual ISP meetings. And I think that's the next slide, maybe. I get ahead of myself. It's exciting information.
Maybe.
Oh, now it's not going? Before it was just going on its own.
Right.
So service coordination.
No.
So part of the person-centered planning is that person-centered planning document that we use for our DD waivers is the ISP, the individual support plan. For age and disabled waivers, sometimes you'll hear the term POSS or Plan of Services and Supports, but for our DD waivers, we have an ISP meeting or an ISP document. And this is a document that's around for a whole year. We'll work with the family and we'll work with the person who's eligible. So this ISP occurs whether there's waiver funding or if you're just a service coordination only person. We still would want to have a person-centered plan to kind of see what it is that you might want and need. And so we're going to develop that plan and it's going to live for a whole year. We'll meet sort of 6 months after that plan's implemented to sort of check in to make sure things don't need to be updated or changed, right? Because in all of our lives, things change every day. We can have additional meetings if we need to. And if things need to change in that plan, service coordination can call a meeting together. That's not a problem. But the ISP document is really going to be based on what the person wants, what services they're receiving, what the assessments identified as needs. Another way I like to explain that person-centered plan is it's kind of that agreement for everybody on that team. So it's what the person might want, it's what they're going to need, and it's what everybody sort of agreed to at that table. So the provider that you've connected with has agreed to provide certain services, and we talk about what that schedule might look like. Maybe there's some natural supports that are being provided that you're sharing with the team, and that's being put in there because that's happening during certain times that are helpful for the rest of the team to be aware. It's sort of that agreement and that plan that everyone's going to be following throughout the year. And then, as I said, we could meet more often if it needs to be changed. I think that was my last slide, but I'm happy to answer any other service coordination questions, or I don't know if you want to wait for.
Yeah, and the plan is required before services can start. So once you get the letter and the assessment is done, the assessment results will go to the service coordinator. And then once they have that funding amount, they'll work with the person to choose providers. And then that plan has to be in place before the services can actually start.
So if services coordinators are going with families to their child's IEP, has there been any discussion about bringing the Charting the Life course, the tools that are there so that it's person-centered? Heard some conversations, but is that underway?
So the Department of Education, they have their own framework and they have their own tools that they like to utilize in planning for students' education. Yes, could service coordination bring those tools with us? We could. It really depends on the intent or the purpose of that IEP meeting. Sometimes they have special ones because there's lots of issues or concerns going on. And I think that I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer the question because it's really our tools and our documents for our planning. But really, if case management, if true person-centered was occurring over the continuum, we would all be utilizing the same assessments, the same tools. So could we share information that we found that would be vitally helpful for the school system to help support this kiddo in school? Yes. Could we bring those tools with us? We could, but I think we want to be cognizant of what else needs to be done at that table for the education system, just like we wouldn't want maybe the school to bring all of their documents and all of their stuff to our meetings. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense, but I'm gonna wear a family hat because I've participated in
Please.
some of those Charting the Life course. It seems like those documents really elevate the needs of the child or the individual and maybe even moves away from just a family or the team perspective to really bring forward. And as you think about youth transition, it's just a natural, sometimes it has to be facilitated.
Yeah, and if there's ways that we could help like bridge that a little bit, if the service coordinator could have different conversations with the school, that might maybe help that. I mean, I'm open to hearing that out and throwing those ideas to kind of, we have some partners that we work with the Department of Education as well. And similar to like Kathy talked about, we regularly meet with VR. So we're really trying hard to meet with other entities in the community. But at the end of the day, it is the framework that we're using. And I just know some schools aren't as open to utilizing the same.
And if the schools are open to it, meetings and IEPs can be held jointly. I know there are definitely some school systems that will do that. It will make the meeting a little longer, but it gets everybody at the table and then you don't have to have 2 hour-long meetings when you can have one meeting that's maybe an hour and a half.
So we've had a couple of questions come in. The first one, if our minor child is on the CDD currently, but we're still confused or have questions about the services that could be utilized, what should we do?
Yeah, so service coordination, we have people who have been around for 40 years and people who started last week. And just like you guys are probably all aware, it can be a confusing system. And so if you feel like your current service coordinator is not meeting your needs, is not answering all the questions that maybe that you have that you need to know, every service coordinator has a supervisor. And if you happen to know who that person is, reaching out to them would be ideal, or you can reach out to myself and I can connect. I don't ever mind, anyone's welcome. I can give my contact information, they can reach out to me, but then I have kind of become the middle person. But I'll usually then have the administrator over that area kind of jump in and assist, but they could reach out to anyone. Our information is also posted online, where we have kind of a map of service coordination. So if people are located in the Omaha area, it'll show the administrators that are over the Omaha area if they're located out west. Just that can be helpful, but otherwise people are welcome to reach out to me.
And on our homepage, you'll see, just below the division org chart, there's another document just below that, that is service coordination offices.
And it's also okay to just challenge the service coordinator too, right? It's okay, like if you feel like you've heard from your bestie, some options that maybe you haven't heard from your service coordinator, it's also okay to just call that service coordinator and say, hey, maybe you mentioned to me about the service respite. I'm not really for sure that I remember that, but can you talk to me a little bit more about that service so I can understand if that's something I want for my loved one? That's also okay too.
And maybe would it also be pertinent to refer back to that ISP to see what services maybe were outlined in there?
Yeah.
And discuss those to make sure they're.
Yep,
being
and I think so. And I think the question probably more comes from maybe those services aren't in the plan today, but they feel like there's maybe some services out there that they could be utilizing. And so, yeah, you could reference the plan. But I'm guessing just based on the way the question was asked, that it maybe there are other options that the family thinks that they could be using that they maybe aren't being explained, if that makes sense.
Yes, okay. And then the next question was, are services coordinators aware of the state-operated intermediate care facility and how it might help the individuals in need of those services?
So service coordination is aware that we do have a state-ran facility, BSDC. It is a facility that does support some of our folks that we would receive, and they transition from that intermediate care facility, that ICF, and they transition to our services. It uses a different level of care, but there's some similarities to it. So while service coordination should know that it exists, it's also, we're home and community-based waiver, right? So we're trying our best to support people in the community, in their local community where they live, where their family lives and works. And so it isn't an option that we tend to say to families or to service coordination, oh, let the family know that they could go to Beatrice, because we're home and community-based waivers, and that isn't a home and community-based waiver, if that makes sense. So to answer the question, I think service coordination is aware that it's an option, but it's not usually one we throw out to families because we have a huge service array that people could be able to tap into from our waivers. But it's a great resource for some folks that have definitely been able to go there and can benefit from it.
I know you're not talking a lot about the A&D waiver tonight, but I am curious. I'm just noticing that there is not supported employment on the A&D waiver, but there is, on the comprehensive, on the day, on the TBI. I'm just curious if there's any thought about working supported employment on the A&D waiver.
I think that's always been something that we are discussing, typically because it's for people ages 65 and up, or disabled. But typically people on the age of disabled maybe have some more medical or physical that they can't. They're not looking for employment as much. It may be something that we are looking at trying to continue to align our waivers, so it may be something that will come eventually.
That is one of the benefits of having all of our home and community-based waivers under the same division, because previously the age and disabled waiver was administered out of our Medicaid division. And while they did a great job, to Joyful's point, we were offering different services to on different waivers, and everybody who might want a job, right? And we want to be able to support people to contribute to their community, and it fulfills us, right? And so I do know we've had some conversations recently about expanding some other options on the age and disabled waiver. And again, that's kind of a nice benefit of having all of us, and it's all in-house, so we can kind of see what's working really well for one waiver and what could maybe be added to the others. But of course, any services added to a waiver doesn't just take our great thoughts. We have to then, go to CMS and get all the approval and stuff, so.
And supported employment is one of the new things that is on the traumatic brain injury waiver. Since we did just add that to the TBI, it probably makes it more likely that it could go to the others also.
There was just a follow-up comment on Beatrice. The reason you have a 1915C waiver is that you have to offer BSDC Beatrice as an option, and then they can waive out of that option if they desire.
Correct. That is part of our consent form for our, to consent to be able to have home and community-based waivers, the DD waivers. Somebody is waiving their right to not live in the facility and have the home and community-based waivers. And so, yes, that's a great point.
Mommy, you might not. Okay.
That's all I have. Questions at this point. Do you have any more slides? I was wondering if it might be possible if we pull up that slide on services coordination, just in case anybody has questions.
This one?
The map.
Oh, the map.
Yes.
We go to our.
Content map.
So if anybody has questions on their services coordination, just take a look at this map and get, is this the supervisor or is this the?
So, yeah, the people listed at the top are gonna be the district administrators. Omaha is kind of split. A bit. Why not? Douglas County is shared between all of them.
So those are the administrators who oversee the service coordination supervisors and the SCs in those areas. And then those 4 administrators report to myself. And my number, I'm not sure why it's not on that sheet, but it's on our other master sheet. That's above there, right there. So the field operations administrator too, that's me, Jillian Liskey. So you can also call that number or email me and I can help you. But if you know the area that you're in, those other ladies can also assist
Can
you.
you slide down?
And this document does have like all the offices too. If you know you're in a specific town, you want to contact that office directly.
I flew recently, so I had to move on.
Sorry, we did have a question come in. Okay, when my child gets to the top of the list, if we have been denied for Medicaid, what happens then? Do we need to reapply now? Do we need to reapply for it when he gets to the top of the list? What happens if he is denied Medicaid again when he is at the top of the list for the comp waiver?
Okay.
And I can help answer that too if you want. So my recommendation would be depending on the age of that person. So if there's somebody that's 19 and older and they hadn't been on Medicaid or they were denied before, I would encourage them to apply again because Medicaid is going to look at things differently at the age of 19 versus when they're younger. If they're younger and they have had a recent a recent denial from Medicaid, it doesn't hurt to maybe wait just because you don't know when that funding offer will be. But if you do believe there'll be a funding offer coming fairly soon, and Kathy spoke about this a little bit ago, we have another process. If there's not a disability determination that's been made by Social Security, we have the state review team, and it's a Medicaid team that will look at making that disability determination, or maybe it's Joyful that spoke about this, I can't remember which one. But they can look at making that disability determination, but that process takes time. And so what happens is sometimes people are ready to get an offer, but they're sitting and waiting for that disability determination to be made. And you could be waiting for several months. And so if
Home,
you
you
are
might
the
need
person
to
to be
work
eligible for
something on
Medicaid, and if
Disney.
you
I
maybe in the
just,
meantime have
I
gotten
don't
a
know what
disability
I do.
determination by Social Security, I would say I would reapply to Medicaid. The sooner you have active Medicaid, the faster things will go once an offer could occur. I don't know, Joyful, if you have anything addition, or Kathy, if you have anything
The
additional
other
to
thing
that.
to just know, once you're applying at age 19, if the thing keeping someone
Ay,
off
era para
income, they know they have a disability, but their
Oh,
parents
no,
make too much
volume.
money. As soon as someone turns 19, apply as a household of one. Even if the person is still living at home, they are a household of one at 19 and parental income is not.
Los 3 minutos.
I do need to have that